Hey there, this is Patrick with Dallas Hockey Hangout, coming to you after a 4-3 Stars win in overtime over the Chicago Blackhawks. Get right into it. How should we be viewing this team? They could have had a letdown after the big loss to Colorado. I'm not sure if you call it a big loss. As soon as it went to OT, I'm talking about the Colorado game, anything can happen, and then it goes to a shootout, which I thought was just really interesting considering they were playing Wedgwood and he seemed to know some of those moves that were coming in, and Robertson didn't go his typical glove shot. I believe he tried to go 5 holes. So all of that to say that, it was a great game, like one of the best of the season. Wish I could have done a pod after that one, but was particularly sour about Hintz getting hurt and McKinnon slew footing him. And so they recovered. They noted a few times just it seemingly was acknowledged that they gave a lot of motion to that game. So you play a down and out Chicago team that has, draft picks to play for. Can imagine it was a little harder to get up for this one, but they looked like they weren't totally in the game to start. So we'll get to the game recap here in a second, but yeah, how should we be viewing this team? As a team that is winning still without a whole bunch of good players. You're without Mikko Rantanen, no Rope Hintz, no Radek Faksa, no Tyler Seguin, and playing your backup goalie. Not that, that's typically a big fall off with the Stars at all. In fact, I would like to broach that conversation a little later, just in the interest of spicy combos. DeSmith versus Andre this season has been pretty exciting. Anyways, how should we be viewing this team? As, a team that's just going to try and find its game the last 20. And they have all these home games in a row against some really good teams. So I feel like if Dallas has any glaring weaknesses, we're going to see them in the next, couple weeks here. So I don't see any glaring weaknesses. And, I'm trying to be unbiased about that. I think, the only thing that outright worries me about, let's just assume, for the time being, that the Stars are going to match up with Minnesota. Quinn Hughes worries me. The guy's a dog. We saw what he did in the Olympics. He's been unreal since he's been with Minnesota. They kind of lack that scoring punch, but what Quinn does for that team, oh man. Was chatting on on Twitter today and just about, the public perception of the Stars, and it doesn't seem like many national people are giving the Stars much of a chance. That's a usual thing. That doesn't it shouldn't surprise y'all. It doesn't surprise me that not a ton of people are really on the Stars. But yeah, just this team, they keep finding ways to win. They bring in a couple new guys, win. Bring up a couple guys that hadn't been playing as much, and Bastion, guys doing great. So and the depth has been great. So we'll talk about that. I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah, let's just jump into the game recap. Dallas was slow to start the game, very, very sleepy, and considering how Dallas has fared with the Blackhawks in the past, you think that they would have been a little bit more ready for them. I think they lost to, Chicago during that 6-game losing streak. It was a 4-3 loss and a 4-3 shootout loss. So, depending on how you view those games, but they were not playing well in those games. And it did seem like Chicago kind of had their number. And I wouldn't go as far as to say Dallas wasn't playing well to start, but they were sluggish. In fact, a big reason for, their big win streak has been how well they've played in the first period. So this was a pretty bad first period overall, just to give up the 2. And yeah, there's some flukiness to some stuff, but there's a lot of games. I've been saying it. If you've been following this podcast, it's a long season. You're going to have games in which you don't look the best, or not all 60, in this case, 61 and a half minutes. Nope. 60 and a half minutes. Yeah, they're not all going to be, masterpieces. So the fact that Dallas got one back in the first, I thought was important. So let's just go through these goals. Yeah, I really, as tough as Bertuzzi is as a player, he's not very likable from a, well, first off, he plays for the Blackhawks. So how likable is he? But, secondly, with a name like Bertuzzi, that's a tough name. But the guy plays really hard, and he's one of Chicago's best players. He's got the flow to back it up too. So, that first goal was watching his battle with Harley in front of the net. Harley had him marked for the most part, and then all of a sudden there's a puck that gets free on the point, and it's very interesting watching Bertuzzi slip away behind Harley and kind of tilt his stick to get a tip for the goal. I was really impressed with that. I really felt like that was a goal scorer's goal. I didn't think it was as lucky as it might have seemed. So the second one was a little lucky. There was that weird play behind the net with Blackwell, and I believe Bischel falls down, and all of a sudden the puck is out in front of the net and pops right to Renzel, and he's not gonna make a mistake from there. So that was a tough goal to give up, but all of a sudden, it's 2-0. Dallas is a little shell shocked. You got the here we go again with playing Chicago again. So that goal by Bastian with looks like 3.5 left about was really important to get Dallas in it, because I would imagine that if that 2-0 deficit had stayed there a little longer, it'd probably been psychologically a little bit harder to come back from. So, but yeah, I mean, the Bastian gets on the board because Bischel's, these Dallas defensemen right now are shooting the puck. I really do think that's been a big difference for why the Stars have been playing so well lately. Just been a little bit more aggressive, but a little less selective on the tic-tac-toe play, so to speak, a little bit just more direct. So his shot and really deft tip from Bastian in the slot. Again, I don't think the average fan really understands how hard it is to contort your stick in a quick manner with the puck flying 90 miles at you. How they don't just instinctively flinch, I think, is also impressive. That was a big goal from Bastian. Second, I thought Dallas output. They did. I think for a long time, the shots were stuck at 6, and the Blackhawks only got a couple late in the period. Dallas really did dominate the second, but I really wanted to give Soderblom credit. 27 saves on 31 shots, despite the save percentage. I just thought he was their best player. I really thought he made some incredible saves. Couple 2-on-1s on Bork and Wyatt Johnston, and with each one of them kind of coming up, short, or, can't punch through on him. And I thought he was really good on those 2-on-1s, and he had an incredible save on Blackwell in the third. That was just a couple where I think he got it with the pad, and then Blackwell is at the side of the net. He gets a diving save off his shoulder. I thought that was really impressive, especially in the arena, showing a lot of athleticism, and it didn't look like he was like swimming in there either. Again, really impressed with Soderblom. So yeah, Dallas, I've sure you heard me mention a time or two about how important goals are at the last minute of the period or the first minute of a period. And I do think that was a big reason why Dallas won this game. So welcome to Dallas, Michael Bunting. Forces that turnover. Also, I really like that weird play that Niels had where he swung way behind the net, and he turns his wrist over. I don't know if he tried to get more on it, but it just leaves it right behind the net, and the Chicago player picks it up, but Bunting forces the turnover. And yeah, Bork gets his backhand off the post, and then it hits Nazar as he's sliding into the crease. But I probably didn't get a chance to mention it on a previous pod, but I love Bork's game right now. I really just see him as a solid top 9 guy right now that you can move up and down the lineup. And it seems like a lot of his goals are coming from his net drive. He's not afraid to get in there anymore. He's not afraid to shoot the puck, and he's been physical. So, and great defensively. I can't say enough about Bork's game right now. I really love that he's, yeah, growing into his skates, for lack of a better term. It's interesting that, Bunting, I'll do a trade section later, but, Bunting is also just one of those players that is honestly similar to what I was just saying about Bork. I mean, he's a guy that gets to the front of the net and is not afraid to, do the dirty work. So we'll talk about trade scenario a little later, but spoiler, I really love Michael Bunting on this team. Yeah, and then Dallas takes the lead off just a incredible effort from Riskovian to, shoot. He got his own rebound, and Bork is also right there in the front of the net. And, if Riskovian is not there, it felt like Bork probably would have gotten that goal, but, he beat him to his own rebound and beat Soderblom. Um, what else can you say about Riskovian's game right now? Everything I feel towards Bork, I feel towards Ritzkovian, but also just Ritzkovian's just got a little bit more more snarl to him. Yeah, that rookie energy is, I feel like, needed on the Stars team. I think I just was seeing a note about the average age of NHL teams and how most of the elder statesman teams average out about I believe it was 31 to 32. And I would imagine Ritzkovian's dragging that average down a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, Dallas in consecutive games has given up a goal with the goalie pulled. But, I mean, it is an advantage for the other team. It's pretty desperate. And yes, we can be a little bit critical about it. But if you watch the goal from Bedard, I mean, first off, there's a good angle of it on YouTube, but you can just see it ricochet off 6'8" Myers in front. His knee pad, his knee's not even moving. It's almost as if he doesn't feel it because you can kind of see his reaction. And so, yeah, off his knee and in the net, but a special play by Bedard regardless. Yeah, this kid has it. I'm not as bullish on him as I am about Celebrini because I just think Celebrini is a once in a decade type talent. But I feel like Bedard is right there. I mean, they have very similar skill sets. I just think that San Jose has a little bit more around Celebrini. I think having Will Smith really helps. They've just got some other talent, and Bedard, it's probably a little less spotlight out in San Jose. Bedard's had some injury issues a little bit, but, needless to say, the kid's going to be great. And to watch him walk that blue line was pretty impressive. And he finds that shooting lane and it goes off Myers' knee and in. So here we are in overtime, and a little pat on the head moment for Bedard. And that, yeah, I mean, Miro's been playing in the NHL a long time. I think that was I'm smiling because it's kind of funny. I think if you didn't know about Miro Heiskanen before, you know now, especially Connor Bedard. If you didn't know, you know now. Because, the OT starts, the puck makes its way back into the Dallas zone. And to Bedard's credit, he's just hounding Miro. And you can kind of see as Miro puts him on his back that Miro's just stronger and smarter and is putting the puck towards the offensive side of the ice with Bedard hounding him at his back. And yeah, I don't think Bedard also thought Miro could skate like that because I don't know. It's just interesting. You watch Bedard back check and he's right there. And, for all you hockey heads here, if you're, that Jack Hughes gold medal goal, you had Makar kind of drifting behind. Now, that's a gold medal game, so I would think that Makar would know that he has to back check all the way. But in this particular situation, with how Bedard was behind everything, I think he was just kind of counting on, Soderblom getting the save or his teammates getting it, maybe trying to leak out and cherry pick for a breakaway. That's the only thing I can come up with because you can see Miro just outskate him all the way down the ice. The two Chicago defensemen that have good gaps on Duchesne, and I can't remember who else is on the ice, but they just let Miro skate right through. And I mean, if you wanted a picture of Matt Duchesne's hockey IQ, that was a really great example because he just sends it's a pass, but it is kind of a shot because it's easily deflected. And, we saw some good deflection goals in this game, and there's another good one by Miro to just subtly change the angle of it and, get it past Soderblom's glove. And, that was to me, that was, hey, you're playing Chicago, because they didn't seem to stop the puck there. They didn't handle that 3-on-2 very well in overtime, did they? So they'll learn. Chicago's going to get better. We're in a couple of years, I'm sure we're going to be talking about them as one of the stalwarts. So we'll enjoy the wins over them while we can. So Dallas gets a 4-3 overtime win. It's nice to, get an overtime win, especially after the very recent shootout loss. Do like seeing it end in an actual play. It was just giving some thought to the shootout loss to Avalanche and how that wasn't really representative of the two teams. I'm sure all the players would say that. That said, how could they have fixed that? I'm sure that I would kind of lean towards like 10 minutes of overtime. They can go fast, the overtime. So I feel like if I got another 5 minutes and it still wasn't sorted, then okay, let's just get it over with and get to the shootout. Like, we don't want players getting hurt. They are exhausted by the time they get to OT. I heard 7 minutes thrown around. I don't think that's enough. A couple minutes. I mean, if you're a team that is kind of counting on a shootout, like, I don't think that is enough time. I think we need to see 10 minutes. I'm not sure that's going to be changed anytime soon, though. So, yeah, let's just hop into 3 stars. For me, I'm going to go Bork. I think he's right there for both of, he didn't get the second goal because it's Ritskovian's move, but just my gut is telling me Bork number 1 star, but just that's because of his resume of the game. I think you could easily give it to Miro. First off, this is a great segue. The few listeners I have, hope to grow this long term. I've been following the Stars for a long time. And I hope that you guys can pick up on the passion I have for it. I go to all the games, so I do feel like I have some insider knowledge, and, I could press on being a reporter. I'm not sure where I'm at on that, but I've covered games before and have been a sports editor for a long time. But, as it currently stands, I enjoy being a fan. I enjoy doing this podcast. So we'll see. Maybe sometime in the future, I'll reach out to the Stars and maybe look at covering some games. But that said, I'm in the stands, and I'm able to meet, a few listeners, and just wanted to give a shout out to Tim O'Brien. He made these cool magnets. If you guys ever see Tim around, just normal guy, but he's got some really cool magnets and woodworking. I really love this logo, by the way, the Stars Black History logo. So shout out Tim, super nice guy. Thanks for listening, man. Yeah, just been really enjoying starting to connect with some of the people that listen, and, don't expect to grow this thing overnight, but if you guys want to tell your friends about it, trying to put the work in, I pay close attention to all the games, and, I don't have to do a ton of night or morning research. A lot of this stuff is just stuff I'm always thinking about. So a lot of it comes naturally, but yeah, I'm trying to think about how I can get a little bit more creative with some segments, and, maybe we'll look at having a few guests on. We'll see. Yeah, 3 stars will go Bork, Miro. I did want to give Soderblom a star. I just thought he was incredible, even though his save percentage was sub 900. I just thought without him, Stars probably win 6-3. Wanted to give him some love. Very impressive Swedish goalie. It will be interesting to see how the Hawks handle that, because Spencer Knight's been their starter most of the year. Not the best record, but obviously not the best team playing in front of him. The Hawks didn't do much. They didn't bail Soderblom out as much as, he had to make 27 saves. Like, it's a tough game for him. So yeah, let's do Trade Corner. Trade Center with an E on the end, Canadian version. Yeah, I really like these additions for the Stars. First off, Dallas has been needing a physical right shot defenseman for a hot minute now. I think the last defenseman that they traded for that I really wanted to see the Stars retain, and I think a lot of people would agree, was, I would love to have seen them keep Boy, I am blanking on his name. It's been that type of day. Tanev. I could not think of Chris Tanev's name to save my life. That's how long he's been gone. Yeah, when the Stars got Chris Tanev, I really felt like he fit in really well. And with Myers, I do really feel like his size is just massive. I mean, the guy's 6'8". How is it possible the Stars traded for someone that was larger than Liam Bichel? So got to see a nice big clapper from him last night. I think he's going to fit in great. I think that if you notice that both Colorado and Minnesota both loaded up with size at the trade deadline and some elite penalty drawers in Kadri, who I would have loved to have seen with the Stars, but I do really love the addition of Bunting, but specifically Myers. I think he's going to be really important for the Stars, handling those fourth line forechecks from Minnesota and Colorado. They're going to be a lot of runs on Miro and Essa. So getting another top four defenseman to, offset some of those minutes. And let's just take a look at how they played him. They gave Myers 13 minutes with Bichel, and I expect to see those numbers even out. Interestingly enough, they gave Niels 17 minutes. I think there was a reasonable question to be asked who would be coming out with Myers coming in, Lyubushkin or Lundqvist, and apparently Lundqvist has done enough for to stay in the lineup. And I would agree with that. I think Niels has been pretty good. He's not being noticed defensively, and he's getting involved offensively, making things happen. So be curious to see how they dole out those minutes. And then for Bunting, he got, 14 minutes. It's third line minutes. That's what I would expect to see from him. But the thing about Bunting is we're going to be able to move him up and down the lineup. I think I liken him to Steve Ott, former Stars legend, bull in a china shop type energy. Not the biggest guy, but he's very tenacious and hard-nosed and is going to get to the hard areas of the ice. Loved seeing that he got a point and loved seeing the joke the Stars played on him with a new guy, named Matt in the locker room. I thought that was pretty funny. And, he's been traded a few times at the deadline, so he's obviously got some value, and it will be interesting to see his performance and whether or not he stays around here in Dallas. But, look, there's a reason Jim Neal is 3-time general manager of the year. And you'd think that, just generally speaking, it does make you wonder why people keep doing deals with him. I mean, it's something that Neal didn't have to give away any assets, really. No players outbound. I think I remember correctly hearing Gulletson, or just at least the talk around the team is just that they didn't want to trade any players out. And really, I was planning on doing that earlier. I'm not typically one to, start doing pros and cons of players. I just don't think that's, there's a reason the team is built this way. There's aspects of players that Dallas needs, and there's aspects of other players that they need. So, but I mean, of the bottom six, let's just look at him. I won't call Steele a bottom six, but let's just, for argument's sake, there's no way they would trade him. Back, no, too physical, too big. Bastian, we know what he's doing. And Blackwell is just, terrific penalty killer. And Ernie, PTO man. Really like that he's still on the team. He's physical. He's done everything he's asked. So it's just, given what they might have gotten for some of those guys, it's just not worth it. The chemistry's too good right now. Let's not forget they're still on a 12-game point streak. That's the Stars players telling the general manager, hey, we're cooking regardless. And they still went out and made some improvements. Look, if you're a Stars fan, and I am, what else could you ask for? You can't ask for anything more than what this organization and general manager Jim Nill are doing for the fans. Every year they're invested. Every year they reinvest in this team to make another long run. And look, 2 years ago, you lose to Edmonton in the conference finals. You got to be feeling like you're close. And then what they do, they went and traded for Mikko Rantanen. And, seemingly, that it was tough to part with Stankoven, but, I didn't see Stankoven as a long-term top 6 guy. So, I mean, it just shows that Dallas is not resting on, these playoff runs, and they're going to continue to improve. What else could you want as a Stars fan? So, and the small chance that I have an influx of viewers interested after, I'm glad that we're talking about this. First off, let's cap off trade corner. Love it. Love the Stars moves. Love Bunting. I think he'd be able to move him up and down the lineup. His speed, tenacious attitude are going to fit in great. And physical right shot defenseman. Dallas has been needing those, every year. So I love it. We'll be evaluating them pretty closely just to see how they're fitting in, how they're being utilized moving forward. But, to move on, there were some good games yesterday too. The Vegas Edmonton game was very good. Edmonton, I thought, played really well defensively and just, pounced on their opportunities. That was a good win. But obviously the big Minnesota-Colorado game was a must-see. That was before the Stars game with Chicago. And yeah, I first off, talk about the game. It was a great game. Very much like the Dallas-Colorado game was. It's just awesome to see two teams that, obviously is top 5 teams going head to head. And it was a very close game. Obviously, we saw it went to another, overtime. And I do think that Colorado is just a slight edge over Minnesota. And I would give Dallas that edge as far as, what do we talk about when we talk about playoff matchups? Don't we talk about history? Shouldn't we be leading with the history of these matchups? I'm watching this game and, obviously you've got Colorado and Minnesota on the screen and on the ice. So that's what everyone's talking about. But I won't mention who, but you get the conversation of, looks like it might be Minnesota and Dallas. And the comment was, I just think Minnesota is going to do it this year. Well, I kind of frustrated from a Stars perspective. I guess I get frustrated every time this year. Dallas has an incredible regular season. They look like another Stanley Cup contending team, which if you ask people that watch, they would be in that category. And every year we get mispronunciation of names. We get people don't even know who the Stars players are. And then we get people just picking series off vibes. But I think Minnesota's I think they're going to do it. Yeah. What would suggest to you that they're going to figure out Dallas in the playoffs? Because Dallas owns Minnesota in the playoffs. Same sort of logic with Colorado. Now, that said, I know that they added Quinn Hughes. I love Quinn Hughes. He's awesome. I expect the series to go 7 and, but I do think Dallas has been there, done that. I think they've got more playoff experience. I think they've got better goaltending. I think that they've got across the whole a better defense. And I think the offenses are comparable. So I would definitely give right now, even knowing Dallas has injury issues, I would give Dallas the edge. I'm curious to see how home ice plays out and whether or not that would impact how I view, like if Minnesota had home ice, could I see them beating the Stars? Absolutely. And if anyone says that, any Stars fan says they can't see that, then they're wearing homer glasses. But that said, on the flip side, if you can't see Dallas beating Minnesota easily, then you're wearing Minnesota glasses and that's what the national media seems to do. Now, at the very risk of this being pulled, I would love to talk to PK. That would be awesome. But PK is a great example. Listening to his picks last year, I think he picked Vegas to go to the Cup. How did they do? It's hard to pick series. And I still maintain that, the national media, they're always going to sleep on Dallas. They just don't watch them enough. It's okay. We've made peace with it. That said, it doesn't mean I'm any less irritable as it comes around every year. And we do this Heiskanen It's Miro Heiskanen. The guy's been in the league for like 7 years. He's one of the best players in the league. He's one of the best defensemen in the league, and he was one of the best players in the Olympics. So if I hear it, I'm going to be irritated, and maybe I might call some names out. Who knows? I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to be like clickbait. I'm not here to do any of that stuff. But I think that I can speak for a majority of Stars fans when I say that it's irritating. It like, you think that someone somewhere, like on the ESPN or TNT side. Now, TNT's been pretty good, I will say. But you think somewhere someone would sit down and be like, maybe we should watch these stars like more in depth. They seem to be in the mix every year. Maybe we should just see what they're all about. So, I mean, haters gonna hate, right? So it's interesting to see the narrative, and I'm sure that however all this comes out, it won't be. I kind of revel. I look forward to it. I can't wait to see Dallas not picked in their playoff series. I don't think they got picked to win any of those series against Colorado or Winnipeg last year. So, and look what happened. And, they're right there with Edmonton. And they don't have their Stars kryptonite. Skinner's not there. Jari's not going to do it. And look at Edmonton. They may not even make the playoffs. Vegas and Edmonton, one of those teams may not make the playoffs. That's how close it is right now. So, yeah, looking forward. Preview of the Vegas game. Oh, man. It's going to be good. I expect it to be heavy hitting. I expect it to be a little nasty. Mark Stone has ceremoniously found his way onto injured reserve, like sands through the hourglass. These are the days of Mark Stone. So, yeah, he won't be there to injure anyone. But that said, I'm sure it's going to be pretty nasty. And the Dallas's last tilt with Vegas, they were up by 3 goals in Vegas and found a way to, give up all of those goals. They still pulled out the win, but, that is something I'm still evaluating, including the Chicago game. I don't know, like to see someone pressure Bedard a little bit better than Dallas going into a shell like that, but I still maintain it was a pretty lucky bounce off Myers' knee. So, yeah, I just want to see Dallas get through this game against Vegas healthy. Look out for Jack Eichel. Guy was incredible in the Olympics. He was good last night against Edmonton. He's just really quiet, impressive player. He's just really great. Dorofeev is a monster. We've got, obviously, you got Marner there now. That he seems to be fitting in pretty well. And Barbashev has been good for them. They just traded for Nick Dowell. Hurdle is a, solid player for them, even though he's -3 against Edmonton last night. Saad's still kicking around the league. Sissons is going to hurt you on the forecheck, and they just traded for another big guy in Cole Smith. So, Theodore's a boss. Hannafin's great. Anderson, which they just got from Calgary, is fitting in reasonably well, even though he was -2. They played Aiden Hill against. Obviously, he has backstopped Vegas to a championship, and they believe in him. But that said, I'd be curious to see who they roll with in the playoffs. I think it'll be super interesting to see if they, give Hart some look. Schmid's had 16 and has played 32 games, has won 16 games. Not the best save percentage, little 893. So his goals against his goals against is 2.61, and Vegas has got a solid defense in front of him. So, yeah, it'd be really interesting to see who they roll with in the playoffs if they make it. Would be really interesting to see that if one of these perennial Pacific teams don't make it. So that'll be a great game on Tuesday. I can't wait to see that one live, and hope the Stars emerge healthy with that. It's been the injury trouble right now is tough. It was really, really tough to see Rope go down with another injury right after coming back. So the Stars win at 4-3 over the Blackhawks in overtime. Hopefully do this again. We got a lot of home games coming up. So we'll keep this cranking, and as we dwindle down to the playoff time, it's about that time of year. And we'll throw this out there. If you're a relatively new Stars fan, or find yourself being kind of negative thinking about the playoffs, I strongly encourage you to soak up this month of hockey. only one team wins the Stanley Cup. That's obvious, but now's the time at which it's fun. You get to see Dallas is obviously headed for another deep run. Hopefully, they obviously have a really great team this year. If they can get everyone healthy, it'd be really fun to see how this team shapes up in the last 20. I can't wait to see some of these games coming up here at the American Airlines Center. Does it get much better than a Vegas Edmonton back to back, and then add in the Colorado game? There's a good set of games here. So at Patrick Hayslip on Twitter, hangout@gmail.com if you got any feedback. Thanks again, Tim, to the awesome magnets. These are super cool. If you guys, see me at a game, say hi. Would love to talk, see what you guys are feeling about the team, and meet any listeners. Talk to you guys next time. Have a good night.